Hi students, welcome back. So coming to the next topic in database management system. So in this video, I'll explain about the building blocks. What are the building blocks of database and some advantage of using the database. So I'm talking about the database, not database management system. So what are the building blocks for database and advantages of database and some applications of database and some drawbacks of database. So these are the topics that I want to cover in this video. Now let us see what are the building blocks of database. So the main building blocks of the database, to implement the database, we required columns or fields, rows, or you call tuples, or another name for tuples is the record, and tables. So these are the three building blocks that are used in the database. If you want to create a database, if you want to store the data in database, you require these three building blocks. So if you know these three building blocks, then you can store the data in database. Now coming to the second one. So what is the second one? What are the advantages? Let us see the advantages of database. Let me explain one by one. So first is the data independence. So if you store the data in database, the first advantage here is the data is independent. So it is independent to one another. So the data will store in different tables. So one is independent to another. So here we can save the data and we can make each table independent to each other. Second one, efficient data access. We can access, means the database can access the data efficiently. So when compared to the file system, the database can access the data efficiently with faster and more secure. Third one, data integrity and security. So if you use the database system rather than file system, it has the data integrity and the security will be there. Fourth one, data administration. So this is one of the advantage of using the database, data administration. So everything will be under the control of the administrator. So only the person who is having the username and the password, he can only modify the data which is present in the database. So that's why it's having more secure when compared to the file system. The database is more secure. Why we are saying it is more secure? Because only the permission, the user who is having the permission, he can only modify the data that is present in the database. So everything will be under control of data administration. Next, concurrent access and crash recovery. So we can access the data concurrently. That is one of the advantage, and also it can have a chance of crash recovery. Something is happened in the database, so you can recover your data in a database, whereas in the file system, once your file is lost, you can't able to recover that file. But in database, a crash recovery can be possible. Next, its next advantage is reduce application development time. So if you want to implement any product, the main thing is you have to submit that product within a time. So for that, this database may be very helpful because it reduces the application development time. So already the tables will be created, or the data already stored that in can be retrieved or modified efficiently with fast access. So it helpful in reducing the application development time. So these are the advantages of using the database. Now let us see what are the applications. So in which areas these database will be used? Applications of database. Okay, so here the database can be used in banking. So in banking areas we use the database. So in banking, in which fields they are using, for what purpose they are using the database? For all transactions, whatever the transactions that are going in the bank, so that will be based upon complete database. The another application is database will be used in airlines. So in airlines, the database will helpful for reservation and scheduling the flights. For all these purposes, the database will be useful. Next application, in universities. So universities also database management system will be used. So in universities, for registrations of the students or staff or whatever may be, for registrations and for calculating the grades and the marks and the information of a student, we require the database. Next in sales. So this is one of the important application, means here the database is more useful. In the sales, we use the database for customers, products, purchases. So for all these fields we required database to store the relevant data. And another application is manufacturing. So in the field of manufacturing also they required database compulsory to store the data. So in the manufacturing field, for what purpose they are using the database? For production, inventory, orders, supply chain. For all these fields they require a database to store their relevant data. And next in human resources. So in human resources also they require the database. So they will use the database for employee record and for salaries or for tax deduction. So for everything they required a database to store their data. And in which fields they will go for? And coming to telecommunication. Nowadays everyone is using this telecommunication. So in the telecommunication field, the database is mainly useful for storing the records of calls, monthly bills, etc. Okay, so these are the different applications of database. Means in these fields, in these areas, the database is mostly useful. And without database, everything they can't run the organizations. So it's a very useful. So in the banking, they'll use for transactions, airlines, reservation schedules, and universities for registration, sales, customs, products, purchases. And for manufacturing, they use for database for production, inventory, orders, supply chain. In the area of human resources, they will use database for storing employee records, salaries, and tax deductions. And in the field of telecommunication, they use the database for records of calls and monthly bills. Okay, so far we had seen the building blocks of database, applications, advantages. Now coming to the disadvantages of using the database. So whenever there is an advantage, obviously disadvantage will be there. So why not use database management system? So let us take the database management system. So why not use database management system? The main reason for not using the database management system is the only thing is the overhead cost of using DBMS. So this is the main reason of not preferring for database management system. So everything is fine, means all having only the most it having the advantages. The only disadvantage is not going for database is the overhead cost of using database. So in which how we can say it is overhead cost? Because high initial investment in hardware, software and training. So we require high investment at the starting to buy the hardware and software and to give the training to the people regarding to the how to use the database software. So this is a high initial investment will be there. That is it makes the overhead cost and cost of defining and processing data. So cost of defining and processing data also overheads the cost of DBMS, and also overhead for security, concurrency control and recovery. So for all these reasons, mostly they are saying that these are disadvantages, means these disadvantages, for these reasons the cost of the using DBMS becomes overhead. So for the security and to maintain concurrency control and for recovery also they need some overhead. Then how can we maintain this overhead? So hence it may be more desirable to use regular files under. So in the most of the cases we will go for the DBMS only, but whenever you require, it means whenever it is more desirable in you can go for the regular files, like suppose simple well defined database applications that are not expected to change. So in that cases we can go for the files rather than database management system. Means some constant data is want to stored. Okay, if you want to store some constant data in database, rather than going for the database, it's better to store that data in the files. So whenever there is a chance, there is no chance, if you want to make the data as constant, so they are not expected to change, in that cases it's better to go for the files rather than the database management system. It may some overhead cost may be reduced. And another thing is no multiple user access to data. Suppose if only one person wants to access the data, that data wants to access only by one person, it's better to save the data in the files rather than going for the database management system. Because the database management system is mainly useful for multiple people wants to access the same data. In that cases they will go for the DBMS. But if only one person is want to access the data, it's better to go for the files rather than DBMS. So this is about the introduction part of the database management system. Thank you.